right, and we are live. Good morning, World Wide Web. Adam Smith, Jen Wayboer with me, of course, with Just the Tips Coaching. And we are delighted to have our guest today, Keith Alba, who apparently, Keith, you don't need much of an introduction. I would say the pre-show traction that we got after promoting that we're going to do a live show with you was probably as robust as we've gotten in what's getting on 2 years of doing this program. So you've obviously got quite a social media following of your own, but good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Adam. Thank you so much. And yeah, I don't know if that's because I'm attractive as a magnet to people, or if I'm just old, right? I've been around forever, and I've heard a lot of people know mine.
That could be. It could be a combination of those two things, no question.
Right?
Absolutely. So, yes, for those of you catching our fresh episode of How I Met Your Mortgage here, our guest is Keith Alba. And Keith, you are actually local to our market. Your office is in Golden. If memory serves, you live in Castle Rock?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
Conveniently located right by the office.
Yeah, that's quite a trek. I don't know how often you're making that commute, but that's got to be 45 minutes.
45 with no traffic, which how often does that happen in Denver any longer?
Yeah, if you do it at 4 a.m, you're good.
Right.
Good. So, Keith, give us some insight as to how long you've been in real estate, how you got your start, why you thought real estate was an avenue you wanted to pursue. Take us back. Give us that intro about you.
Yeah, so Adam, I guess it really goes back to kind of that old nature versus nurture sort of a thing, right? My family had an independent real estate office in the Denver metro area when I was growing up. So real estate was always the conversation at dinner, Thanksgiving time, any of that sort of stuff. So converted that into one of the first Keller Williams franchises in the state of Colorado back in '93. My family went on to open, some additional franchises in and around the state. We got the regional franchise rights in December of 2001, and then sold that off at the end of 2011. So it's kind of been in and around ever since. When I was in school, getting a business degree, I was looking at, the business that my family had already established. We had a bunch of the Keller Williams offices. My dad was doing a lot of land development pieces, and so what was missing was the middle piece, and that was the construction side. So after I came back from college, I started working with some of the home builders in the area as the superintendent, building houses. Ended up with a small private custom builder for a while, kind of doing their project management. And then September 11th happened, and there was immediate 5-year standing inventory of the luxury houses that we were building. And so the owner of that business had to make a business decision and cut some overhead. He was operating out of his house, so there was no space to give up. The employees were me and his wife and himself. And so if he wanted to continue to work in that space, then his option was to, let go of me. So it was after that I started working in the mortgage industry. I was doing some originating for a period of time, and then joined the regional office at Keller Williams in 2003, April 2003. And did that until we sold the rights back in 2012, and then got out of it and started going with a simpler life without the TPS reports of corporate and all that kind of fun stuff, and started partnering up with my business partners now. So that was basically 2012.
I'm really surprised that this guy didn't divorce his wife and just marry you and keep you on.
Right.
Go.
Who knows? Maybe, hindsight now, it's 2020.
Yeah, he really blew it. If you're watching, you should have, divorced your wife, married Keith, and proceeded with your business. So, Keith, you've really seen a wide gamut of what goes on in the real estate industry, from construction and building to mortgages, and certainly now in the real estate practice. And if I'm putting the pieces together correctly, you've only done Keller Williams on the real estate side.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than the independent, but I was never licensed when we had that. So
And don't get me wrong, we are very pro Keller Williams in a number of ways when it comes to just the tips. We've attended Bold. We love what kind of education and workload goes into lead generation, those kinds of things. We've always been a big fan of the kind of training and education that Keller Williams agents get from coast to coast. There's just a really great amount of content, and there's really a great brotherhood among Keller agents between family reunion and all the different opportunities that you guys have to interact and mingle with one another and spend time with agents you would never get to meet otherwise. It's really some cool stuff that goes on at Keller Williams. So this is for those of you watching, this is really going to be a unique look into the kind of content that we're going to be able to put out today in this show. Keith, you've got all kinds of different ideas when it comes to early real estate career lead generation, home builder lead generation, and certainly mortgage originator lead generation. Give us some idea back in those earlier parts of your career, what those kinds of activities looked like for you.
Well, and I agree with you, Adam, on Keller Williams. I get a lot of value out of it. I think a lot of it comes from the top with Gary Keller. You know, having come up through the ranks of the agents, he really wants to invest in the agents that are a part of it. And so he's a big mentor of mine based off of my production. I'm fortunate enough to be able to go to Austin on a quarterly basis and be a part of a private mastermind group with him. And what he says, and I believe, and I've veered off a little bit sometimes and stubbed my toe because of it, but it really begins and ends with the relationships, and that's going to be your database. So for first-time newbies, whether it's construction or loan officers or real estate, what does that database look like, right? And how are you interacting with it on a regular basis? What kind of value are you adding to it? And I've gotten real clear lately, Adam. I mean, I look at my behavior as a consumer and then try and apply that to the real estate world. And what I mean by that is, you know, the book, the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, talks about touching your database at least 33 times throughout the year. That's being rewritten now, and that's being pushed to a 36 touch. So really 3 times a month, how are you interacting with that database? How are you adding value to it? And I think email has become the white noise of our industry, right? So I wake up in the morning, I get my cup of coffee, I get my iPad, and the first thing I start doing is going through my inbox and just deleting the garbage, the spam, the junk, right?
Ditto, yep.
My goal is to maintain mind share with the clients out there. Am I really doing that if I see my name in their inbox for 30 seconds or less, if they're just deleting it, sending it to the trash, basically? So that's been the focus that we're working on and will continue to work on, is just basically how do we add that value there. And then step 2 of getting into this business and developing a strong business is adding to that database on a regular basis, right? So how do you put people's names into that? And I really believe, as one of my other trainers and mentors, he says, if you just have a database that has a name, an email, and a phone number, you really just have a white pages. That's not going to do you so good. So what kind of data can you put into that with all the contacts that are there? Anniversaries, birthdays, kids' names, all of that kind of fun stuff, so that when I am reaching out and having conversations with them, it's relevant, timely, and it's personal to them. So
that is perfect. We refer to that data, and thank you to another colleague and former coach, as drill down data. And we've got a list of 50 questions that if you can answer about a client or lead or advocate, then they're yours for life. And obviously those subjects are family and recreation and work and education and lots of different things. But I certainly do want to take a brief step backward, because this time of year we tend to pick up new coaching clients. There just seems to be more people that are on a cycle of fall to fall. It's a year-long program. So we've got a number of people that are involved in our first module, which is really contact management, building up a contact database. What kind of contact management are you doing with that database? And I think our mortgage company touches our database something like 40 times a year. So we're right on track with that. And some of it's text, some of it's email, some of it's the phone, some of it's social media, etc. But we do have a very regimented schedule in that. fashion as well. It is certainly important stuff for those of you watching, but I want to make sure that people that are contemplating starting this up or are really just on the precipice, on the initial threshold of doing this kind of lead generation, zero cost marketing type of stuff, that what Keith said to you guys is really, really invaluable. Building up a contact database and how you touch that database is probably two of the most important things that you'll ever do in the lead generation aspect of your career. And it's something that you've got to start with day one. It's got to be an everyday, 365-day-a-year activity. And it's got to be something that you're going to do for basically the rest of your career. So I want to make sure that you guys really hear how important that stuff is, because it's the first thing that came out of Keith's mouth. It's the first thing that we do in our coaching program. It's really the first thing you guys need to do as new agents, new originators, new financial planners, whatever the case may be. So thank you, Keith. Valuable information.
It's the reality that's there. I mean, sometimes, I like to say as the real estate industry, we suffer from ADOS, and that's attention deficit, shiny thing, and, we're just distracted by any of the new silver bullets. But the reality is, it's just like weight loss, right? You got to increase your activities and decrease the calories. Well, with real estate, you got to increase the contacts and the people that know, like, and trust you and want to do business.
Yeah, and that's really a good point, too, for those of you watching, and particularly those of you that are relatively new to your respective industry. The noise, the volume of those shiny objects that are being thrown at you is unreal, particularly in the real estate world, if you're a real estate agent. And you have got to learn to tune that noise out. If you're really successful at your lead generation activities, you probably only need 2 or 3 really hardcore, regimented, systemized, somewhat automated processes. And you don't need 10, 20, 40, 100 different ways to generate leads, which is the volume of stuff that's being thrown at you guys on a regular basis.
Very true. Just walk through a national convention or whatever, right? You have a massive room of all these vendors that all have that shiny new bullet that are going to promise you, massive business. But reality is, it's just about the people that you know and the people that know you and know that you're in the business that you're in.
Another boy. I can see Jen smiling because she is in love with this conversation. But yes, for those of you watching, Keith really nailed it on the head there. 2 things you got to make sure you're always doing, making sure people know who you are and what you do. And if you're coming into contact with people and they don't know that you're a real estate agent, that I'm a loan originator, that Jen does marketing, whatever the case may be, then you're already failing. Now, granted, that part's easy compared to the who you are, the reason people want to work with you, they're attracted to you, that the ones that you don't want to work with are being repelled by you, which is fine. That's not something you want to shy away from. But you've also got to make sure people know the who you are, what you're about, what you're into, what you're like, how it would be to work with you, so on and so forth. So, yeah, Keith, don't stop. You are just like Oprah out here. You get a nugget and you get a nugget. Yeah, don't stop, brother. This is awesome.
Yeah. But I read on an annual basis in our study of buyers and sellers, right? So this is information coming from people that bought or sold a property in the previous year. Right? And it's over 70% of the people that did said that they would work with their agent again. But depending on if it's a buyer or the sell side, it's either like 12 or 25% actually do. And so it's not just about acquiring that new lead, that shiny thing. It's about maintaining that relationship. Or that when I'm teaching and training, it's about, I'd say, building a moat around that mind share. Because if you're not getting, somebody's not thinking of you when they're thinking of real estate or loans or financial planning or what have you, then the odds are you're probably not even getting the at-bat to sit down and chat with them, tell them about why you're the best solution there. So it is one of those things where, as an industry, we've failed to maintain that contact with our past database of people that said that they would do it. And that gives, the newer agents, the ones that are getting into the business, an opportunity to build their business from that. So,
well, and I think it's important that the newer agents that are getting into the business have resources at virtually no cost that you and I didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago with social media platforms like this, so on and so forth. We were doing ads and yellow pages and bus benches and grocery carts and things that had an exorbitant cost. But what I really want you guys to take away from that, because another impeccable nugget from Keith, if you're not in touch with your past clients, they're now someone else's prospects. Plain and simple. And those numbers from NAR don't lie. If all of you watching, everyone out in your respective industries were doing a better job of staying in touch with your past clients, those numbers wouldn't be anywhere close to what they are now. But the bottom line is that you're not. So all of you that are ignoring your past clients in your lead gen, in your top of mind activities, in your client retention, those are now Keith's prospects. So Keith's winning at those kinds of things, and it is uber important that you are taking really good care of your past client database. Obviously, your lead database, your advocate database, these are important aspects, but your past clients are literally crucial. When we're coaching an agent that wants to double their business, we make it really simple. Look, all you've got to do is continue your normal organic activity. Whatever it is you did to generate those 10 deals last year, do it again next year. And then let's make sure that those 10 clients each only have to refer you one person in the next year, just one, and you've doubled your business. So you guys have really got to hear what Keith is saying about really respecting your past client database. It's one of the most valuable assets in your entire business. All right, so Keith, tell us about your business now. How is it structured? You've got other agents, buyers, sellers, TCs, assistants. What does your business structure look like these days?
Sure. So it's me, and I have two business partners that I work with. One he's kind of our silent partner out training nationally on a regular basis. He's a bold coach. So if you've been through bold, you know that. So he's out doing that stuff. And so it's me and my other partner that are actively working in the business. We've got 7 agents that are a part of the team, and that is all being supported by 2 admin that are here locally, and then I got 2 virtual assistants that are over in the Philippines.
Okay.
So that's the real estate side. And then based off of need and business that we were generating in the investment world, we've started up a property management company. And so I've got a licensed agent over there that deals with our investor clients. He's got a property manager in training that works underneath him, and then we've got an admin that's working, on the side for that as well.
Okay. And when it comes to these agents on the real estate side that are working with you, what kind of activities do you see them doing in the modern era that are good for their lead generation? What are you instructing them on? What are you guys finding that works really well? Tell us about their lead gen activities.
Sure. So a lot of it is, one of the requirements in my team agreement states that within 2 weeks of them coming onto the team, they need to turn over their database to me, and we're going to plug them into the systems and the marketing that we've already got up and running. I earmark that with their name on it, so if for some reason they do end up leaving, then that's what they take with them at that point. So training, scripts, dialogues in and around that database, touching on them, letting that database know, hey, I'm in real estate, if they're a newer agent who's getting started, all of that kind of fun stuff with the database. And then really, as you were talking about earlier, there's a lot of different options that are out there. So I want them to figure out what they're going to do and what they're going to do on a regular basis to kind of build that database and start building that business. Whether it be open houses or expired and for sale by owners, or we have a Boomtown account as well, so we can get plugged into that if they want to do internet feeds. But it's really about, okay, where's your wheelhouse? Where do you feel comfortable? And what are you going to be able to do on a regular basis so that we can get you to the business that you want to be doing and meet your financial goals?
And of this group of agents that you work with, some of them are brand new, some of them are seasoned, some of them have been at other companies and seen the dark side, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably about 50-50 mix between seasoned agents and some of the newer ones, just newly licensed, that are coming on board. Not everybody, wants to deal with the headaches and nuances of running and owning a business, And so they're very happy to kind of leverage that out to me and let me take on the cost of salaries and overhead and that sort of a piece in exchange for a split on the business that they do end up doing.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so going forward, and I know that this is unique, and I'm not asking you to, read your crystal ball. Mine's in the shop, so I know that that's very difficult stuff. What do you foresee in the next 2, 3, maybe even 5 years when it comes to not necessarily just lead generation, although that's certainly a big part of it. We know that there's a significant outside influence from the iBuyer, the financial technology companies, whether that's Zillow or Open Door or whatever the case may be. Not that I think that's a permanent aspect, again, for a 2 to 5 year window, but what kind of things do you see out on the horizon that are going to provide good fodder for your agents?
Yeah, well, if you listen to Gary Keller, he's talking about this being the fourth industrial revolution, right? That the technology and everything that is out there that we're seeing and feeling in different realms will be coming to the real estate industry just because of the dollars that are a part of it. And so specifically artificial intelligence, predictive analytics based off of timeline, consumers' interaction with, a website or an app or whatever, I do think that there's probably going to be some more aspects to that. So, what they're building, what they're talking about is almost like a Netflix or an Amazon type of a feel to the real estate. So based off of somebody's past interactions with the website and the different things, you're going to have suggested houses or things based off of their search process. So I do think that there'll be some adjustments and changes along those lines. I don't think that the real estate agent is ever going to be fully taken out of the middle of the transaction. There's just too much information that we have, or too much of a resource for the client on that piece. There's some companies that are out there that are trying to drive down the dollars or the commissions that are paid on behalf of that. We'll see how that works out, right? Amazon put a lot of bookstores out of business, but now they're coming back to the brick and mortar locations. So maybe just a small flash in the pan. And they realize that a salaried agent may not be the best choice for them. We want somebody that's been in the business and has that knowledge and expertise. So over the next 2 years, I'd say probably a little bit more of some battling. It's going to get a little ugly out there. Blood will be shed, specifically the iBuyer realm, Adam. I think there's a lot of companies that are in that space right now that in 2 years won't be around any longer. They're driving their margins down so small that there's going to have to be some casualties in that arena. I think it's an option and something that'll stick around for a period of time. I just don't think there'll be as many players in that arena.
I would say that that's true. And to backtrack a little bit, just because you'll find it ridiculously entertaining, I saw Gary Vee speak at a mortgage conference last month in Las Vegas, and he said to this enormous audience, 1,000 or 2,000 mortgage brokers, just brokers, not retailers, within 10 years, I'm simply going to say, Alexa, get me a mortgage. And now you need to figure out how to make sure that when Alexa goes out there to find it, she brings back you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. We'll see where the technology develops over that time frame, but I thought that was fairly poignant and really curiosity sparking. Generated a lot of questions and answers. It scared the hell out of Jen. She won't admit it as the marketing director, but wow, how do I make sure that the Core Finance Group, that's the mortgage company that I own for those of you watching, how do we make sure that the Core Finance Group comes back when someone says, Alexa, get me a mortgage?
Take our conversation full loop here, Adam. If we're staying in contact and adding value to our database, rather than asking Alexa, that people are going to pick up the phone and call us.
That's the idea. I would certainly hope so, although I'm not going to argue with Gary Vee when it comes to how people are going to find shit on the internet.
No, I would agree. For those that aren't in relationship with the, consumers that aren't in relationship with a professional, or that professional is not adding the value, I definitely think there's going to be that solution out there for them. At the same time, I'd like to think that, again, because of the relationships and the things that I do for the people that are in and around me, that I would be their Alexa rather than just going to some random internet search or paid placement to be that result from one of those smart devices.
Well, and let's not pull any punches. Selling real estate is a little different than selling wine.
It's true.
Yeah, and Gary, if you're watching, I love you. It was an honor to do that event with you, but this is certainly a slightly different animal. But, in some cases, people fall into the trap with Quicken. People fall into the trap with Zillow, Open Door, whatever the case may be. They don't understand that they're paying more, that they're getting a significantly lower level of expertise, that there isn't a legit person to pick up the phone and call when there's a fire to be put out, those kinds of things. So I would say that those elements are going to require that the loan originator, that the real estate agent, that the financial planner, that the insurance agent are still a staple of those respective industries for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and the way that I'm wired, Adam, is, if somebody is going to Alexa to get that information, then I failed somehow. I'm not telling the story, and I'm not providing them value enough for me to be that number one resource when they have questions about that sort of thing.
Yeah, or just staying top of mind. Again, just for those of you watching, not staying in touch with your past clients, it's not necessarily that those past clients are going to become a client of Keith's. They may become a client of Zillow, which even Keith would hate. He would rather they remain a client of yours than fall into that kind of a trap. All right, so Keith, we do get, and I can't believe how fast 30 minutes flies by every time we do this, especially when it's a great conversation. But Jen, let's put Keith down for a sequel for sure. And so, Keith, the bottom line here is that we do get a lot of consumerism in our audience. Obviously, we've got a ton of real estate agents in our audience, loan originators in our audience, other salespeople. And for the most part, there is an enormous audience for your business. Potential agents, certainly potential referral partners, consumers that need to buy or sell, and again, consumers that need property management on top of that. So give us the highlights about how all of these potential people that want to work with you can reach you.
Sure. I'm one of those creative guys, and so my email address is keithalba@kw.com.
Whoa, that's unique.
Out of the box that's there, or my personal cell phone is 303-478-7246. And start here. If it is something that needs to go over to my investor division, with Ted and the property management, or acquiring, an investment property, I can make that handoff. Or, we've got specialists in the new home construction industry. I can make that connection and have some representation going into that. So we've really built this team in and around what I like to call a client-centric approach. So the client's in the middle, and we've all kind of specialized in different arenas and different areas, so that the experience that our clients are getting is one of service, one that's straightforward, refreshing, and honest, as we like to say.
Fantastic. Jen, is there anything else you want to add or ask Keith about, or anything to that effect? You've been quiet this morning.
My connection's a little slow today, but no, Keith, this was great, and I'll definitely be in touch for a sequel.
Very cool. Well, Keith, thank you. I really appreciate this. I knew that this was going to be a live wire conversation when I saw the activity that had spawned from us letting people know that you were going to be a guest on the show. So thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and again, I'll look for that email. We'll get something on the schedule.
Cool. And for those of you watching, if you'd like to see past episodes of the show, if you'd like to see our weekly video blog, the weekly little tip, which is just a quick tip on something you can be doing to generate more leads in your business. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you want a copy of my book, Just the Tips, if you would like more information about Just the Tips coaching, by all means, use that text code scrolling at the bottom of your screen. You can text TIPS to 63566. Keith, don't go anywhere. We're going to sign off, and I would love to have just a few more minutes of your time if you can spare it.
Sounds good.